The first performance SUV was the GMC Typhoon, which came out in 1992. There really wasn't much competition, maybe apart from the Lightning, but that's not even an SUV. Then came the Jeep 59 Limited 6 years later. Essentially it was the predecessor to the Grand Cherokee SRT 8. From this point on, there have been performance SUVs on the market to this day from many of the automakers. Crossovers too, and I will be combining the two car classes for this video. The sports packages that were slapped onto some of the SUVs during the early 2000s were very forgettable. Before making this video, I didn't even know about half of the entries. However, that doesn't mean they were bad for the time, and that comes across like it was so long ago, but if you compare any one of these cars to a Trackhawk or a Bronco R, it's night and day. You also don't really see the regular models and trims of the SUVs in this video. I'm not saying never, but the sportier trim/models can easily be overlooked, and that's if there is one. They are all getting harder and harder to find. With all that said, here are the top 10 most forgettable sports SUVs from the 2000s. We begin with the Pontiac Aztek Rally Edition. The Aztek is one of the most polarizing vehicles from Pontiac ever, and apparently there was a sportier package for it. The Aztek was introduced in 2001, the Rally Edition was introduced 2 years later and would be available until its demise. They received a lowered front suspension, larger rear spoiler, body-colored grille, 17-inch chrome wheels, and a chrome exhaust tip. And that's pretty much it. You got the same engine, same drivetrain, same interior. The wheels were in fact unique. You couldn't option them in on the other trims, so that is a plus. While this may be boring or lame to some, it's definitely forgotten, and it was sportier than the other trims. The next entry goes to the supercharged Nissan Xterra, offered only from 2002 to 2004. Only the first gens received this option, as did the Nissan Frontier for a few years as well. Base models came standard with a 4-cylinder. You could upgrade to the 3.3-liter V6, good for 180 horsepower and 202 pound-feet of torque. However, you can get that same 3.3-liter V6 supercharged, which added 30 more horsepower and 44 more foot-pounds of torque with the automatic transmission. You could get these with a 5-speed manual as well. Torque numbers went down 15, but it's a manual, which would make these even more unique. 0 to 60 improved about 1 second from non-supercharged models, so around 8 seconds flat, which isn't amazing, but it's different, and not many know that these were factory supercharged. At number 7, we have the Subaru Forester XT. The Xterra is a proper SUV. This generation Forester is by far not an SUV, but that doesn't mean they aren't cool. The XT trim was available from 2004 to 2008, and this was the first time the States received a turbocharged Forester. The X and XS trims received Subaru's 2.5-liter single overhead cam naturally aspirated engine. With the XT, there was a turbocharger slapped onto it. Power went up from 173 to 230, and torque went up from 166 to 235. 0 to 60 in around 6.6 seconds, combined with a 5-speed manual and all-wheel drive, seems like a fun ride for the 2000s. There were also a few cosmetic additions to XT models that helped them stand out, such as a functional hood scoop, body-colored components, 16-inch alloy wheels, and chrome exhaust tip. The interior was upgraded as well. It came standard with nicer amenities and features. A 2006 model, which is almost 20 years ago, as of the new year, set buyers back around $28,000, which in today's money is close to 45 grand. There's also the Outback 2.5 XT and Baja Turbo with that same Boxster engine. Power outputs vary across all three models. The Outback made the most and the Baja made the least. I'd be lying if I didn't say I wouldn't want any one of these three, because I honestly do. They are all really neat cars in my opinion. The 2004 to 2007 Saturn Vue Redline is our next entry. Saturn in the early 2000s had a pretty decent lineup 20-some years ago with the Ion Redline, the Sky Redline, and of course the Vue Redline. All V6 Vues had Honda's J-Series engine that made 250 horsepower and 242 pound-feet of torque. The only transmission this engine was made into was a 5-speed automatic from Honda. Before I made this video, I thought that the J-Series was exclusive to the Redline, but I was wrong. It's the same engine found in the Odyssey and Pilot from the time, but it's still a great engine. With the Redline package, which was around a $2,000 bump from the V6 model, you got a nice assortment of upgrades. The suspension was stiffened and lowered an inch, performance struts and springs were added, unique power steering calibration, and then there's the exterior. Ground effects throughout the whole body, 18-inch alloy wheels, and chrome exhaust tip. The looks of these are growing on me. The front, especially in that electric lime color, there's just something about it that I find very fascinating. Like the other entries, the interior was upgraded. You got the same options as the V6 models, but with the addition of a special gauge cluster. The Forester XT and the V Redline were pretty close in price in 2005. I know which one I'd take. I think it's an easy answer, but I do like the V Redline. At number 5, we have the Dodge Nitro RT. The Nitro came out in 2007. With it were 3 trims: SXT, SLT, and RT. After 2009, these trims were renamed Heat, Detonator, and Shock. I'm not sure why they did that, but that's what happened. I am not a fan of the Nitro. They look really bad in my opinion. I prefer the looks of the Liberty, its divisional cousin, but not by much. Now, would I take an Aztek over the Nitro? Probably. Actually, yes I would, because at least I get a tent and a cooler as a center console. SXT and SLT trims came standard with a 3.7 liter V6 that made 210 horsepower and 235 pound-feet of torque. RT models came with a 4 liter V6 that made 50 more horsepower and 30 more foot-pounds of torque. 0 to 60 in around 6.9 seconds, which makes it the second fastest compared to the previous entries. With the RT trim, it came standard with 20-inch chrome wheels, upgraded suspension, air dam, and body-colored grille and rockers. It also came with a 5-speed automatic transmission, the same used in the Magnum SRT8, Charger SRT8, 300C, and Grand Cherokee SRT8. The lower trims came with a 4-speed automatic, and early SXT models came standard with a 6-speed manual, so it is an upgrade, just it does not make up for the looks. Additionally, these things had such poor interior quality, a vertical windshield, not great fuel economy, they rode rough, they also didn't have low range 4x4 seen on the Liberty. Nevertheless, the Nitro RT deserves a spot on this list, whether I like it or not.
You need some help?
Yeah. Could you give me a jump?
Sure.
Give it a try. Try giving it some gas. Thanks.
From 2001 to 2004, consumers could opt for the Extreme package for the Chevy S10 Blazer. It would set buyers back around $2,000 or around $3,600 in today's money. With it came sports suspension, unique body cladding, color-matched exterior, 16-inch alloy wheels, which look nice. That deep dish design works well with the theme. Additionally, they received a lower front fascia with fog lamps, tinted windows, extreme badging, and some interior changes. They came standard with GM's 4.3-liter Vortec V6, around 190 horsepower and 250 pound-feet of torque. It really depends on the year for this engine, as adjustments were made over the years, so power output varies. The transmission was either a 4-speed automatic or a 5-speed manual, and that is a nice plus. Most entries did not come with a manual. There was also an S10 Extreme, and while they may look a little cheesy or outdated, when these first came out, they were really cool and they stood out. Now, I ask you all, would you rather have a Blazer Extreme or a ZR2? Both were limited to the Tudor body style and were close in price. There will be a poll in the community tab for you all to vote. I don't think it will be close, but I am still curious about the outcome. In 2007, the Honda Element received an all-new trim called Street Custom, or SC. During the early 2000s, there was this market for boxy cars. There's the Nissan Cube, the Scion XB, and of course, the Honda Element. These cars are kind of unique. They have the ability to fold all seats flat to create this bed. They had unique opening doors. Some models had all-wheel drive, and there was a lot of room inside. With its mid-cycle refresh, they decided to add the SC trim, and from the looks of it, there were some noticeable differences. The front bumper and grille were changed and color matched. It came with 18-inch alloy wheels, projector headlamps, lowered suspension, stiffer springs and shocks, and was offered in exclusive colors. One of those colors is root beer, very interesting name, and it is one of the best colors offered for the Element ever. The interior also received some changes. There was now this tribal print in the fabric, carpeted flooring, 7 speakers with subwoofer, just to name a few. Under the hood is the same engine found in base Elements, a 2.4 liter good for 166 horsepower and 161 pound-feet of torque, made into a 5-speed automatic. Unfortunately, these weren't available in all-wheel drive, but it definitely makes sense why it couldn't be optioned with it. I had no idea Honda even offered this with the Element. I guess it's kind of cool, but there were definitely better options for the price. At number 3, we have the 2008 to 2009 Chevy Equinox Sport. 2009 would also mark the end for the first gen Equinox, as a year later they received a new generation. These sort of remind me of the Trailblazer SS, at least in the front with those vent cutouts. It honestly doesn't look that bad. Under the hood was not a V8 as to be expected, rather a 3.6 liter V6 good for 264 horsepower and 250 pound-feet of torque, which is quite respectable. The transmission was a 6-speed automatic with manual top and down shifting, allowing for a sub 7 second 0 to 60. On top of the upgraded engine, these came with an assortment of other upgrades. 1-inch lowered ride height, performance-tuned suspension, front and rear body kits, 18-inch chrome wheels, larger stabilizer bars, stiffer bushings, tuned exhausts, and interior upgrades. Pontiac offered the same thing with the Torrent called the GXP, and you pretty much got the same upgrades. The exhausts on the two were different, and the Torrent came with hood vents as well. I personally like the look of the Torrent better, especially in the rear. The lines are sharper, and to me, it looks more aggressive. At number 2, we have the 2006 to 2008 Volvo XC90 Sport. During this time, Volvo had the S60R and V70R, both really cool cars in my opinion, over 300 horsepower from a turbocharged inline-5, and decided to give the XC90 a sporty package as well. Upgraded shocks, stiffer anti-roll bars, power steering was tweaked, chrome exhaust tips, unique wheels, and the interior received some nice upgrades as well. 4.4 liter V8 good for 311 horsepower and 325 pound-feet of torque made it into a 6-speed automatic with all-wheel drive. Same power output as non-sport XC90s, but there were some nice performance enhancements made. They also have aged really well. For a 2006 to look this good nearly 20 years later is impressive, but good luck finding one since these are very hard to come by. The final forgotten sports SUV from the 2000s goes to the Infiniti FX45. You might think you see these occasionally, but I'm letting you know 90% of the time you see an FX35, not 45. The 45s came with a V8 instead of a V6. 315 horsepower and 329 pound-feet of torque made it into a 5-speed automatic with manual shift modes, 0 to 60 in 6.1 seconds, an entire second faster than the 35s. Also, the FX45 is the fastest compared to the others mentioned in this video. 20-inch alloy wheels, fastback roofline, firm springs, thick anti-roll bars, bigger brakes, a very nice interior, and they sound amazing. Just like the Volvo, these have aged very well. They are also around 20 years old, and unfortunately, also like the Volvo, these are becoming harder and harder to find. That is going to wrap it up for this week's video, my first video of the new year 2025. I just wanted to say thank you all for sticking around. This community has been gaining more and more followers, and I'm very excited for this year. If you aren't a fan of the 2000s, check in next week as I switch up the decade every week, or at least I try my best to. That is going to wrap it up for this week's video. Enjoy the rest of your week, and I will see you all next week.